Hi, my name is Henry Kavanaugh, and this is a video explaining my final project for my Intro to Archaeology course for the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester. For my final project, I decided to revisit a database that we discussed at the beginning of the semester, the online coins of the Roman Empire. Specifically, I was interested in analyzing what certain emperors and authorities decided to put on the reverse side of coins, and then to theorize why they might have decided on a particular symbol or general symbolic topic. At the start of my project, my professor provided me with a simple delineated text file from the online coins of the Roman Empire, which contained over 50,000 individual coins. Obviously, to make full use of this resource, I couldn't work with the data by hand, so I had to figure out how to automatically and systematically sort and count the data. Essentially what I did was take the raw data, process it into a pairing of only the descriptions of the reverse side and the authority that minted the coin, and then parse and filter the data into a punctuation-free and exclusively lowercase format that I could apply two different methods of analysis to create final displayable and understandable data. The first data analysis method was to simply, after filtering out some extraneous terms that wouldn't provide any information, to show the most common words associated with descriptions of the coin's reverse side and be able to display that for each authority. The second was to use a Spark learning algorithm to automatically go through the data and generate clusters of associated terms, which could be associated via their appearance together within the descriptions or just general linguistic associations. These two actually worked really well together, and I used them both to do a little bit of analysis, which I'll discuss in a minute here. But first, I wanted to talk about something that could definitely be improved with my programs is the filter. They're pretty crude. They're both on the screen here. The top is for the Spark clusters, and the bottom is for the frequency lists. They're just based on experience from running the programs over and over and over again. For example, left and right appear in every single description of coins, so they are the most common terms for every single authority, and that's really not useful information, so I filter them out. And there's definitely things you can do. Constantine the First, for example, appears in a lot of clusters just because he's so prominent, and he actually minted over 4,000 coins. He's the greatest contributor to the database that I used. So he appears in a lot of clusters, which you could maybe filter him out and see what happens. If anyone is watching this and is interested in that, you can go to my website, which is listed at the bottom. I plan to upload the files there, and you can download and alter them however you want. Anyway, so here's the first result. On the left, you'll see the frequency list for the Emperor Aurelian. And on the right, you'll see the automatic cluster, which generated free of my direction. I didn't tell it to generate one for Aurelian. Aurelian just happens to be the first term in this cluster, and it's listed in the order of most relevant to that cluster. So who was Aurelian? Is an important question to ask when trying to get some information from this. He was born to a peasant farmer. He's also credited with pushing Sol as the main divinity of the Roman pantheon. And you'll see on the left, you'll see he used Sol and radiate as his third and fifth most common descriptive symbol. On the right, you'll see in the cluster, you'll see corn ears, Ceres, and a few other terms. Pileus is a hat. Just kind of associated, you might be able to correlate it with his upbringing, or at least, his heritage as the son of a farmer. And I think it's just interesting to note that corn ears doesn't appear in his frequency list, but it's the second most common term in the cluster. Another thing in this cluster that you might question right away is, well, what's the correlation between the authorities? Galba's the second authority in this, and who is Galba? He also came to the throne in a kind of unusual way. He was adopted. Galba actually struggled with public support. He ruled during the year of the four emperors and didn't rule for very long. And my question was, was he trying to appeal to the common man, a farmer, by showing corn ears and symbols of solidarity with them? Same, even with slaves, he showed like libertas type of things. And you can see, once you generate the frequency list for Galba, you can see corn ears in his list. But it would be irresponsible to ignore the fact that these two seem to actually be correlated outside of the cluster, which is part of the limitations of this method of analysis. And it's why I decided to end up expanding the clusters from 10-word clusters to 20-word clusters, just so you can kind of be wary more so, and you can see that if the terms are all really correlated with one thing, then you might be able to draw more significant conclusions, which you'll see in my second result analysis. But anyway, it seems Aurelian and gavel are actually correlated with scepter and globe. They are their two favorite symbols, which are symbols for authority. They both have a reputation, from my brief research. They seem, according to the internet, to have reputations for being harsh rulers, which is the correlation between them and could explain the correlation between their top two symbols. But, maybe my question was right. Maybe Galba was using coroners and Pileus and Libertas to appeal to the public. But it is important to combine this with knowledge that he was associated with Aurelian, probably primarily because of scepter and globe. So here are some 20-word clusters. This is what would generate if you ran the program that's hopefully uploaded to my website. You generate 10 clusters. These are the first 6, and you can pause and look at these if you want. The correlations are pretty obvious, but I really want to talk about the 6th one because I think the correlation is just absolutely leaping from the screen. Obviously, these are all war terms, and they're all winning in war terms. I mean, you see victory is even one of the terms. And the terms in blue are authorities, and you see all these associated words. I mean, you can see scepter is less relevant to this cluster of words that are clearly correlated with war than Galileus is. Galileus is more correlated with this war cluster than scepter, and more correlated than Mars, who's the god of war. And I just think you can't look at this cluster and think, oh, these emperors must be in here by mistake. Obviously, they must be correlated with war in a significant way to end up in this sort of cluster that's so clearly a successful generation from the learning algorithm. And then if you look at the frequency lists, you can see the learning algorithm did get it right, and you can just see war symbol after war symbol in these lists. Shield, which was the top result in the learning algorithm cluster, is the top term for Constantius, and the second top term for Constantine. And you can see the correlation, and clearly these are all emperors that like to have war symbols. And why might they want to have war symbols? Well, they all ruled during times of civil war, which isn't unusual in the Roman Empire. They also had to defend against invasion, also not unusual, but they do have correlations. Specifically, the crisis of the 3rd century ties these people together. I mean, first, I feel like I should mention the elephant in the room. Constantine and Constantius are related, which might not be surprising, especially if you know your Roman history. Constantius is Constantine's son and successor. So obviously there's a correlation there, which I will dive into in a second. But in terms of Galileus and Constantine, a strong correlation is the crisis of the 3rd century, which Galileus lived and ruled through and had to deal with, and Constantine, who decades and decades later had to reclaim some of the land that was lost during the crisis of the 3rd century, which was a time of civil war in the Roman Empire. So I wanted to talk more about how the learning algorithm might have matched Constantius, and war. I mean, they both ruled during war, but also there are some symbols within their frequency list that clearly match them together, and I would theorize that it had something to do with the Spark algorithm matching them together. First, I would say these are the first 2 Christian emperors. Constantine was the first Christian emperor, and his son was the second. Constantine used sol, which means sun in Latin, as a symbol for Christianity. Perhaps to please the pagan crowd, because Christianity was outlawed before Constantine, so for him to suddenly become a Christian is kind of a shocking shift. And using Sol, you saw Aurelian, who pushed Sol as the main god of the Roman pantheon. It's a tie to the old times. And then you'll see Constantius used more typical symbols, I guess you could say, the Chi-Rho symbol and the phoenix, which leads me to a correlation between them and the word shield, which would explain why shield is used so frequently. So the Chi-Rho symbol, or at least its significance, originates from a story involving Constantine. You'll notice that Chi-Rho is actually Constantius's frequency list and not Constantine's. But it originates from a story at the critical battle of the Milvian Bridge, where Constantine experienced a vision right before battle, and he was told by some divine being to write Chi-Rho, the Chi-Rho symbol, which is the first 2 letters of Christ's name in Greek, on all of his soldiers' shields, and he did so. He won the battle, and he credited Christian God for guiding them through the battle and converted to Christianity. And thus it became a symbol of Christianity. And you'll notice Chi-Rho is painted on the shield, which explains why shield is used so frequently in these 2 authorities' coins. And in the middle there, I actually have a coin that's one of Constantius's coins, which was not hard to find, of a shield with the Cairo symbol on it. And I just thought that was an interesting connection that the algorithm must have picked up on. And, I didn't know that going into this, and it quickly jumped off the screen at me. And I think it really demonstrates the power of this method of analysis on ancient Roman coins. I would also note that just further proof that the shield thing is a little bit more than just speculation. There is the other authority in this thing, Galileus. He does have shield pretty high up, but he has it lower than spear and scepter. And it's not even close for Constantine and Constantius in terms of using shield versus some other thing that a soldier might hold. So if you found this presentation interesting and you would be interested in doing your own further analysis using this sort of method, feel free to visit my website, download the files, and do whatever you want with them. I would be thrilled to see other people come up with results from these methods. Thank you for watching, and thank you, Professor Smith, for an amazing semester. I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I enrolled in this class, but it turned out better than I could have ever anticipated, and I'm glad I found it in STAR.